our world and beyond. Space, in partnership with the European Space Agency.
Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are.
When it comes to the origins of the universe, there's one idea that really captures our imagination, and it goes like this. Everything, even time itself, started with the Big Bang. So, is that what really happened?
Twinkle, little star.
The Big Bang is something in our current thinking as the point of origin where our universe came into being. How that happened and what was exactly there at that point in time is still not very much known.
The Big Bang is an idea. I would say it's not a moment in time, and that's what I think often people confuse Big Bang with a certain moment in time.
The universe becomes infinitely dense and infinitely hot at the time equal to 0 seconds. And so this is what's called the Big Bang.
The Big Bang is a model, and it's a model that allows different factors which have been observed to be linked and given a sense. And it allows us to have developments in theory that can be tested against observations. So it's a model that allows us to create a story.
If the concept of the Big Bang is tricky to describe, then it's even more tricky to measure and test with scientific experiments. But that's exactly what two of the major projects of our time set out to do. One of them is on Earth and the other in space. Here on Earth, that experiment is at CERN near Geneva.
This is it. We're standing in front of the detectors which were used last year to discover the Higgs boson.
Two science teams worked in parallel with CERN's Large Hadron Collider to find the fabled Higgs boson, the particle that gives mass to matter and proves the existence of the Higgs field.
We believe